Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar, Azure, Not Your Father's Microsoft Anymore. My name is Steve Mahoney and I'm a practice director at the Spitfire Group. So by way of an agenda, we're going to look at what is Azure. So this is going to be a level set for everyone. Some people are familiar with Azure. Azure has really matured and there's a lot of different options out there as of June of this year. So we'll go through that and hopefully it'll help a lot of folks kind of see what the potential and then also what the current offerings are of Azure. Hybrid models. Hybrid models is where a lot of the cloud is going to. It's the combination of public and private. So you might have your own data center and you might want to interoperate this with other data centers, be it from Microsoft or Google or others. We'll look at some of the services that are offered and the controls. Specifically, Microsoft is very powerful, and it's powerful such that it creates a simple dashboard environment to really have access to a lot of different services that are out there. And we'll see a demo of that as well. So we'll look at what is there, what is potentially possible, and then how do you really leverage that going forward as a small and medium business. And there's a lot of enterprise offerings as well. We'll look at comparables and pricing. As with everything, there always has to be competition out there. If there isn't, then there's probably not a market out there. And we'll look at the comparables out there from Google and some local offerings from Ajubio and Fortrust. And then also look at, of course, how that compares and contrasts against Microsoft in the space. And then finally, we'll look at a getting started approach. Azure, I'd actually say it would be considered new and something that you do want to watch and invest in. And we'll look at different options on how to get started with that. So what is Azure? Windows Azure was launched about 2 years ago in about 2011. And if you actually want to see what it is, you can go to www.windowsazure.com. A key point is that as of June of 2013, really just a couple months ago, it was their biggest update ever. They introduced a lot of feature functions from VPNs to Active Directory in the cloud. They really perfected that. And you're really going to see that really mature going forward because it's an investment that Microsoft is focused on in order to create new revenue streams that will offset traditional Office software purchases, and then also traditional Windows purchases. So you're going to hear language out there, platform as a service, IaaS, that's infrastructure as a service, and really those two terms are really synonymous at this stage. Platform as a service originally started out as something very focused on developers with Visual Studio and the usage of SQL Server. And then infrastructure came about in which things that we all traditionally pushed into the network and the system layer via a virtual private network connecting two data centers together, or having Active Directory for a single sign-on concept. That is now all available in the cloud, 100% secure, and we'll look at some of that model. Another term that you're going to hear out there is hybrid. Hybrid is really combining public and private. So when you hear public, it's not public such that everyone has access to it. Everything is secure. But the classic public cloud architectures out there are Microsoft, Azure, Amazon's, AWS, and finally Google. And we'll look at some of those and compare and contrast where the benefit is and how it can all be included and architected together. So the key idea about Azure, it is more than Microsoft. For developers, it really does support Java. It supports Node.js, and for those not familiar with Node.js, it's the ability to run JavaScript on the server. PHP, made famous by a lot of Facebook work, but it is very popular in terms of a scripting language, as well as Python, and Ruby is a great development environment. So as we can see, these environments are out there. They're multi-platform, and they interoperate quite well with .NET. From a systems level, Ubuntu Linux, and the Windows Server VMs are all available. So that's great if you want to get Linux instances up and running within Azure. Azure does support all that at this point, all those different OSs. So a key idea is virtual machine portability. That's the VM portability part. So what Microsoft has given the ability to do is that within your data center, and that's the private part, you can create a virtual machine quite easily, or you can create a virtual machine in Windows Azure. And those virtual machines, as you can see, they're all in blue, can easily be moved back and forth between a Windows Azure environment and a data center. So if you look at it, it gives you a lot of power, a lot of capability, and a lot of burstable options. So you might be running within your data center, you might need the capability of running Azure with multiple other instances. You might not have the hardware procured within your data center, but you can easily procure it within Windows Azure, only pay for what you're using, and then really leverage it. So we'll look at this a little bit further during the demo, but this is an example of a Windows Azure dashboard. You can see you can create websites and virtual machines. That's what we'll focus on. There's mobile services out there, which is a little bit newer, but that's really the ability to start to run a lot of the Android and the iOS development. Cloud services is typically focused on your core cloud enablement options when you're running Azure. So think about it as the lowest level plumbing to really allow all this to work. From a database perspective, you can have SQL Server out there. You can have Hadoop. Hadoop is now supported within Microsoft Azure. Storage, very common building block. You need burstable storage out there in which you might need disks, virtual disks of course, to support a database or to support your website. All that is available. SQL reporting for SSRS usage. It is out there, and it is a service that can be used. So it's a great, powerful capability. And there's some additional services that we'll go into during the demo. So the blues and the greens, the key idea is that the blue is some of the existing data center supported. It's a global footprint for Azure. I think there's upwards of 80 plus countries that are supported currently. So that allows for multi-currency, multi-language, and the ability to really shift load back and forth across these different data centers and offerings, such that you might have maybe part of your website that has a European presence, or India or China might be extremely popular for what your product is or service. So you can easily shift load. As you can see in South America, they're starting to build that presence up. A huge presence, of course, in the United States. There's East and there's West and Central data centers. The key idea to understand with Microsoft Windows Azure is these data centers are owned by Microsoft. So they're owned and managed by Microsoft, and that really is comforting because you don't have to really have to deal with racks and all the administration that could go with keeping a lot of these servers running, because they're running within a virtual environment. So in the model of Azure, there's a lot of application building blocks from storage to traffic, so you can easily watch a lot of the traffic and the messaging. CDNs, of course, are focused in on a lot of digital network delivery. The green represents a lot of the focus that really is what Microsoft said we're going to go to market with in June and beef these services up such that this is world-class and easily is at a level that you can then use these for enterprise and mission-critical applications. For the websites, that's a new capability in which you can run multiple websites out of Azure. You can have your domains moved over and really run a fully functional website from that environment. We went over virtual machines, really the ability to move virtual machines between different environments, the ability to leverage Linux, the ability to leverage Windows Server. Identity, that's the Active Directory aspects of running single sign-on, and the ability to use Active Directory that every system administrator in a Microsoft environment is very familiar with. Networking, went over that, talked about that a little bit, but it's the ability to have virtual private networks really between Azure environments, between an Azure environment in your data center, or between an Azure environment and an Amazon or an Ajubio environment, as an example. So when you start introducing VPNs, really what you're looking at is a cloud-to-cloud based architecture in which it matters where your servers are running, but then it doesn't matter where your servers are running because you can easily connect these clouds together at this point. And that's where a lot of the services really do come into play at a network level and at a system administration level. So from a virtual machine, the key idea is that you have a flexible workload support environment supporting both Windows Server and Linux. So you only are paying for what you're consuming. As an example, you only might need servers running Monday through Friday. On the weekends, your environment is not live. So you can literally shut your server farm down and you're really not going to be charged for any of it. The other option might be that you're not a 24/7 shop, but you are literally 8 a.m. till, let's say, 9 p.m. Mountain Time. So you could run those servers at that point. Then you can maybe go down to a skeleton model. So you might go from 50 servers down to 5 servers to support overnight traffic. And then when the day rolls around again, you allow the load to go back up to 50. So there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of options. So now we're going to go to a demo environment. So this is, I call it a demo environment, but this is literally a fully running Windows Azure portal. So we'll do a refresh here and it'll be coming up. Some of the key ideas of the dashboard are that you, at a glance, can see all the different services that are running. As an example, you can see the websites. We have a Spitfire website running, and over here, spitfire.azurewebsites.net. So this is currently still running underneath a 3-month trial, and I highly encourage you to sign up to Windows Azure, and we'll give you some ideas on how to get started with Windows Azure. But this is running out of the West Data Center. As an example, it's still in free mode. But this domain could easily be a domain that is just spitfire.net or spitfire-test.net. So we could move domains over using DNS entries, and that's fully supported. Virtual machines, a few that are running here, kind of in a test mode, but stevemahoney2.cloudapp.net. So cloudapp.net is Microsoft's domain area, and of course this is a subdomain of that domain. For SQL databases, as you can see, we have a SQL Server database running, and if you wanted to create a virtual machine, I'll give that as an example. Let's see, just a sec. Move the icon here. So if we wanted to create a new instance of a virtual machine, we'd be clicking on the new instance. As you can see, there's different services that you could add. You can create a website. It's brought me, of course, to a virtual machine. I'll do a quick create. DNS name, we'll say Spitfire Test 1. And as you can see, it's looking up on the fly within its domain to make sure everything's there and it's available. The image, this is very powerful, and the powerful part of it is that you can use an image that's already available, that Microsoft has made available, or you can create your own image and then use that image at a later time. So we have access to anything from Visual Studio to Linux, SQL Server, Windows Server. So we'll just choose the data center. Different size cores. You are charged at different amounts, and we'll go through that a little bit later to see what those charges are. But you can go extra small. That might be a test instance, as an example, or a beta instance. Some other examples might be, let's see, let's pull up this, extra core, all the way up to A7. Not quite sure why they call it A7, but there's 8 cores, 56 gigabyte of memory. So what we'll do is leave the small. Username, we'll do Spitfire, password, okay, okay. Go back here. Make sure I create something that I know. Okay. And out of the different regions, you can go into Europe, you can go into East or West, Southeast Asia, or East Asia. Of course, that's more for India and China, East and West, North and West Europe. So you might have more of a France, England, Spain, or you might go into more towards the Russian part of Europe. Okay, so let's create this in Western US. We'll create the virtual machine. And then we'll go back to diving a little bit deeper into some of the aspects of Azure. But as this is being created, we'll let that get created. And we'll go back to our presentation. And while that's spinning up, let's look at some of the comparables. There's really two main ones out there that are classified as public options, and there's others. It could be Ajubio as an example, which is a Boulder-based, Boulder, Colorado-based company, and they're partnered with ForTrust and IO, and they are bringing up a lot of private data center options for clients. Google is really new. Google has been there for a couple years, but it's mainly been focused on developers. So you have a developer-centric web service connection and API, but they're starting to diversify more to get into the virtual machines and the ability to really spin up maybe Hadoop instances for a lot of the big data type analysis. If you're looking at a company that has been doing it the longest, it really is Amazon with AWS, Amazon Web Services. Of course, Netflix runs out of it, and a few larger companies. But the idea with Amazon is that it is a platform that really leverages Microsoft and Linux environments in which you could bring those up, VPNs, you can connect them. And they've been doing it probably for multiple years, even longer than Microsoft. And a lot of their capabilities, of course, are mature. One of the differences that we've seen working between Amazon and Microsoft Azure is that there's a lot more responsibilities that are taken on when you're in an Amazon environment. As an example, the virus protection and the firewall configurations, they're all, of course, needed within a Windows Azure environment, but there's a lot of instances that are given to you as a starting point in which a lot of those configurations are turned on. So there's a degree of safety within those environments as compared to an AWS. However, there's a lot of power within the Amazon environment. So if we're looking at pricing models, here's an example. So a price per hour is 2 cents for extra small, 9 cents all the way up to 72 cents, and A7 is $2 per hour. So the key idea is if you did the crunching on the math, and they do some of it here, approximately $15 a month, $500 a month, etc. The key idea is that this is a burstable, on-demand model. So if you need, maybe you need just basic a medium model as an example to run a system, be it a production system or a test or even a development system, and maybe when you're about to go live there might be different performance characteristics that you actually do want to test out. That's where you can flex a little bit and then go into some of these larger cores and more RAM to either test more, do performance testing, or actually go live in a production environment with one of these options. Another key aspects of Microsoft is they're fairly open about their SLAs. If you go on the Windows Azure site, you can download the cloud services, virtual machine, and virtual network SLAs. You can see what they are. They, of course, are stating 99.95% uptime. It's very similar to what a Google would give you or an Amazon. There are some environments, as an example, a Jubio, ForTrust, or even some of the others out there like a Rackspace that are coming closer to 100%. The one that I do know about, being from Colorado, is a Jubio and ForTrust, and they do have 100% SLA. So if you are looking for something in which there is no downtime, or there's a high likelihood that everything will be up most of the time, you probably do want to look at the Ajubios or Fortrust to really get that reliability. However, for Microsoft Azure, 99.95% is very, very high in terms of the uptime. So getting started, you do want to look at the 3-month trial to set up pilots. The key idea with all the new technology and where it's a little bit different with the cloud and with Microsoft and with Azure is this is really a long-term commitment by Microsoft for the cloud environment. So it's not something going away. It's only something that is being added to even further. You might want to look at marketing or partner websites. Maybe you're launching a new product or a service, or you have a partner channel. That's an example of getting started with Azure in a non-critical path type model. You could use Azure for your disaster recovery, business continuity, and backups. It's a really quick, easy way to use the environment, use it for storage, use it to speak with the CEO as an example, or some of the business unit leaders, and really state, here is our process. If our data center does go down, we have the ability to move over to Windows Azure and come up in a functional environment. Once you get past some of those basic options, you might want to then look at the virtual private network connections between public and private. The services are really important from what we've seen, alluded to before. Microsoft is kinder and gentler in the cloud. All the networking and understanding of the VPN and how to connect the machines and really getting some of these environments up to speed, Microsoft gives you a jump start on it, but you still have to have that basic systems architecture type understanding and a lot of folks that do understand how to interconnect a lot of these environments. So finally, in a summary, Microsoft is betting the company, and I say again, on Azure. Microsoft back in 2000, as an example, bet the company with .NET, and that proved to be a great foundation for them to build on. There's examples of technologies that might not have been maybe the finest moment for Microsoft, but Azure is something that they are betting the company on from a cloud perspective. The main reason, of course, are external drivers. The PC declining quarter over quarter for 2013 is one example, and the slow decline, of course, of conventional software that is purchased, and everything is moving more towards a subscription model. It's really where the world is evolving to. Cloud models will push pricing down. You saw 2 cents and $2, etc. With competition out there from Google, with competition from private data center providers such as an Ajubio, those prices will continue to drop, and it's a healthy marketplace, and it's a good thing. And a lot of the cloud providers are really going to focus and differentiate based upon their services and how they're going to create their secret sauce. So there won't be generic cloud providers as much, but really cloud providers focused in on maybe certain technologies or certain industries. So you're going to start to see that focus. A way to really leverage hybrid, you can take your private data center, you can take part of it, and then move that into the cloud and really interoperate the two environments. From what we're seeing and what the analysts are seeing as well, it is going to be a cloud-to-cloud based world out there. And a lot of the best solutions are really going to reside in the cloud, and security will be so tight that you really won't have to worry about secure access issues. One of the key ideas, of course, is a network connectivity. So the more and more you trust the cloud, the more and more it becomes important and critical almost to have multiple backup network connections. And with technologies coming out now on department and small company based hotspot options from AT&T, you really can easily switch over to multiple networks very quickly and quite easily. A key idea is within Microsoft, they're aware that there's others out there, and they're supporting a lot of those options from other providers, be they Linux, be they Java, be they scripting languages, IBM, Oracle. It's a multi-vendor world out there, and they understand that. And finally, cloud is where IT is trending. It's an acknowledgement that there's additional resources out there and there's additional ideas that need to come to market quickly. And the ability to really do that in a traditional IT sense is very difficult at times, even in the best, most efficient IT environments. So cloud is really there to augment the current environment. It's there to complement in a hybrid mode. And one of the key ideas, and I highly encourage you to look at the trials, bring up different solutions, and really try things out. So if you have any additional questions, definitely you can contact myself. Let me bring up my contact information. And askmahoney@spitfiregroup.com. And we're going to be having additional sessions going forward on what cloud environment is the right environment for you, and then also looking at roadmaps and playbooks that really are working out there for people. So I hope you found this useful. I hope you found it very helpful to at least get an overview of Azure. And I welcome you to come back for some of our additional webinars and in-person seminars. Thank you.